I still remember the first time I pushed open the heavy wooden door of Carter's Old Books, the kind of place that looked forgotten by time. The sign above the shop was faded, the windows dusty, and the bell that chimed when I entered sounded tired, like it hadn't been rung in years. Yet the moment I stepped inside, I felt something different, something warm. The air smelled of old paper, ink, and a faint trace of coffee, though I never saw anyone drinking there. The shelves were tall and crooked, filled with books whose pages were yellowing but alive with history. It felt like walking into a secret world where stories whispered to one another in the silence. I came there out of habit more than need. Every Saturday morning, after a long week of work at a job that drained me, I'd wander into the bookstore. I never told anyone about this ritual. It was my own little escape. There was one particular book I always gravitated toward, Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman, not a rare edition, not even expensive, but for some reason, I couldn't stop myself from opening it each time I visited. I'd flip through the pages, reading random lines, as if the universe was giving me answers I didn't know I was searching for. Then, one day, I noticed something unusual. Scribbled in the margin of a page was a small note, written in delicate handwriting. It wasn't from Whitman. It was from someone else. The words said, "If you're reading this, then maybe you love words the way I do." I froze. My heart skipped. Who wrote this? Why here? It felt like someone had reached across time and left a secret just for me. From that day on, the bookstore wasn't just a place to escape, it was the beginning of a mystery. And maybe, a beginning of something more. The next Saturday, I returned to Carter's Old Books earlier than usual. The note in Whitman's book had been playing in my mind all week. I wanted to see if it was just my imagination, or if there were more words hidden in those pages. I pulled the book from the shelf, my hands trembling slightly. The cover creaked as I opened it, and there it was. Another line, this time a few pages after the first. The handwriting was neat, but not perfect, as though written in a hurry. It read, "Some words aren't meant to be kept inside. They need to be shared, even with strangers." Strangers. That word hit me. Was I the stranger? Or was the writer the stranger leaving pieces of themselves behind? I flipped through the book, scanning margins, underlines, little arrows pointing to favorite lines. Whoever this person was, they weren't just reading. They were living inside the words. And now, somehow, I was living inside theirs. I don't know what came over me, but I pulled a pen from my bag. On the corner of the page, under their note, I wrote back, "I think you're right. Words deserve to breathe. Tell me, who are you?" My hand shook as I put the book back on the shelf, wondering if anyone would ever read what I wrote. For all I knew, the notes had been left years ago, and I was writing to a ghost of the past. But something inside me didn't care. For the first time in a long time, I felt connected. To someone, somewhere, somehow. That night I lay awake thinking about it. Not about my job, not about bills, not about the endless monotony of life. No. I was thinking about an unknown soul who scribbled in the margins of a book, and how my heart already wanted to know them. All week I couldn't wait for Saturday. My coworkers thought I was just excited about the weekend, but deep down I knew the truth. I was counting the hours until I could check Leaves of Grass again. When I finally walked into Carter's Old Books, the bell above the door gave its usual tired ring, and the old shopkeeper barely looked up from his crossword puzzle. I went straight to the familiar shelf, my pulse racing like I was about to meet someone important. I opened the book carefully, almost reverently, and there it was, an answer, right under my note written in the same delicate handwriting. "I'm just someone who believes books are better when they're shared. Maybe that makes me strange, but if you're still reading, maybe you don't mind strange people." I couldn't stop smiling. My heart felt light, like I'd stumbled into a secret world. Someone had read my words. Someone had answered back. I took out my pen again and wrote, "Strange is good. Maybe we're both strange then. Why this book? Why Whitman?" As I slid the book back onto the shelf, I noticed my reflection in the dusty window nearby. For a moment, I almost laughed at myself. Here I was, having a conversation with an invisible stranger through the margins of an old book. And yet, it felt more real than most of the conversations I had in my daily life. That night, when I got home, I caught myself making coffee, and sitting by the window, staring out at the streetlights as if expecting an answer to float through the night air. My phone buzzed with work emails, but I ignored them. For once, my thoughts weren't about deadlines or responsibilities. They were about a mystery person who wrote notes in old books, and about how somehow I couldn't wait to hear their voice again, even if it was only through ink on paper. By the third week, our little exchange had turned into something more. I'd walk into Carter's old books, pull out Whitman, and find a new note waiting for me. Sometimes a question, sometimes a thought about life, sometimes just a single underlined line from the poem. And each time I'd answer back. It felt like we were creating our own secret language. No names, no faces, just words. One note that stuck with me read, "Do you ever feel invisible, even when surrounded by people?" I stared at that line for a long time, because yes, I did. Every single day. I wrote back, "Yes, all the time." Maybe that's why I'm here talking to you. Because in these margins, I feel seen. I didn't realize how much of myself I was pouring into those scribbles until I looked back at the pages. My handwriting leaned forward, desperate, alive. It wasn't just a conversation. It was confession. The following Saturday, when I opened the book, I found something different. Instead of a short note, there was a longer message written across the page. "If we're going to keep doing this, let's make a rule. Only honesty. No pretending, no masks, just truth. Deal?" I sat there in the quiet corner of the bookstore, the weight of those words sinking into me. Honesty. It sounded simple, but in a world where everyone wore polished versions of themselves, it felt terrifying. Could I do that? With a stranger? I tapped the pen against my lip, then bent down and wrote, "Deal." When I placed the book back, I noticed the shopkeeper glance at me curiously, as though he'd finally picked up on the pattern of my visits. I quickly shoved my hands in my pockets and walked out before he could say anything. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop smiling. I didn't know their name, their age, or even if they were a man or woman. All I knew was that in a dusty bookstore, inside a worn-out Whitman book, someone was finally listening to me. And I was listening back. By now, Carter's old books had become my sanctuary. Every Saturday, the moment I stepped inside, my chest would tighten with anticipation. The world outside felt heavy, loud, chaotic. But here, in the silence of worn pages, I had someone. Someone who understood me without ever seeing me. That morning, I opened Leaves of Grass and immediately noticed the handwriting was bolder, as if written with more urgency. The note said, "Do you ever wonder if the person you're writing to could be the one you've been waiting for all your life?" I sat frozen. My fingers lingered on the page, tracing the ink as though I could feel the hand that had written it. The question wasn't casual. It was intimate, almost dangerous. For minutes, I didn't move. My heart thudded against my ribs as I realized what was happening. This wasn't just about books anymore. This was about us. I pulled out my pen, my hand shaking, and wrote, "I've wondered about a lot of things. But lately, yes. I wonder if you're real, or if I've dreamed you up. And if you are real, what if you're already the one?" After I wrote it, I stared at the words, horrified by my own honesty. I almost wanted to rip the page out, but the rules of our game were clear. No masks, no lies. That evening, I walked the streets of the town aimlessly, my hands stuffed in my pockets, my head filled with impossible questions. Who were they? Did they live nearby? Had I passed them on the street without knowing? Were they sitting in the bookstore at the same time as me, watching from another aisle? The idea haunted me, in a way that thrilled me. Because somewhere out there, my mystery stranger existed. And maybe, just maybe, fate had brought us together in the only way we both needed, through words. The next Saturday, I was at Carter's old books even earlier than usual. My hands were sweaty, my chest tight. I knew today would be different. I could feel it. When I pulled Leaves of Grass from the shelf, my eyes darted straight to the margins. A new note was waiting. This time, the handwriting seemed more deliberate, slower, almost careful. "I think it's time we stopped being strangers in the margins. Next Saturday, same time. If you're brave enough, meet me here." I nearly dropped the book. My throat went dry, and I had to sit down at the small wooden bench near the window just to steady myself. My mystery companion wanted to meet. After weeks of hidden conversations, after pouring our hearts into ink, the idea of seeing their face both thrilled and terrified me. I wrote back quickly, my pen pressing harder than usual. "I'll be here. I've been waiting for this more than you know." For the next 7 days, everything felt surreal. I'd be at work sitting in endless meetings, nodding along to my boss's words. But inside, my mind was elsewhere. What if they didn't show? What if they saw me and were disappointed? What if this fragile magic between us shattered the moment reality stepped in? Finally, Saturday came. I arrived at the bookstore 15 minutes early, my heart pounding so loud I thought the shopkeeper could hear it. I stood by the shelf, pretending to browse, my hands clammy. Every time the bell above the door jingled, I whipped my head around, wondering, is it them? Minutes passed, then half an hour, then an hour. People came and went, but none of them looked my way. None of them lingered near Whitman. When the shopkeeper finally announced he was closing early that day, I stood frozen, staring at the door that never opened for the person I'd been waiting for. They hadn't come. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the scene in my mind, the bookstore door opening, the bell ringing, strangers walking in and out. Each time I hoped it was them. Each time disappointment followed. By morning, I convinced myself it had all been a mistake. Maybe it was a game for them. Maybe they never intended to meet. Maybe I had been foolish to believe that love could bloom in the margins of a dusty old book. Still, the following Saturday, I couldn't resist going back. Not out of hope, but out of habit. My body carried me to Carter's old books the way it always did. I reached for Leaves of Grass, though I expected nothing new inside. But when I opened the book, there it was, a note, longer than any before. My hands shook as I read. "I'm sorry I didn't come. Life has a way of pulling me in directions I can't always control. But please believe me, I wanted to. More than I can explain. I've never been braver than on these pages, and maybe that's all I'll ever be. If fate is kind, you'll understand." At the bottom of the page, one last line was written in careful letters. "My name is Emily." Emily. The name echoed in my head, soft and unfamiliar, yet suddenly the most important word in my world. I stared at it for a long time, then finally wrote beneath it, "Emily, I don't know who you are, but I know you've changed me. I'll keep coming here, week after week, because some stories are worth waiting for. And if you ever walk through that door, I'll be here, no matter how long it takes." I closed the book gently and placed it back on the shelf. As I turned to leave, the bell above the door rang. My heart leapt. I spun around, breath caught in my chest. A girl stood there clutching a worn notebook, her eyes searching the shop. And when they met mine, she smiled, like she already knew. That was the moment I realized some loves aren't found in grand gestures or crowded places. Some loves begin quietly, in the margins of an old book.